What's going on, everyone? Today is the 9th of December, 2024. My name is Derek, and welcome back to this, the 93rd edition of the Superstream. In today's video, as we always do with the Superstream, we're going to talk about the world of news in the mainstream, particularly in politics, and how it seems to be scripted alongside major sports in the world. This past weekend, we had the final Grand Prix of the season for Formula One, which is a sport I've taken a great likeness to decoding this year. And for those of you who don't like racing, maybe you'll be happy to know that this is the last race. But it needs to be talked about because McLaren won its first Constructors' Championship in 26 years, and they did so with a total of 666 points. And if you've been following my videos or my blog posts over the past week, you know that 666 was the number I was talking about all weekend. This incredible 666 alignment happened on Pearl Harbor Day. So we'll talk about how that element ties into Formula One. But at the end of this video, we're also going to talk about the WWE, because a week before the reopening of Notre Dame and the end of the F1 season, Japanese superstar Shinsuke Nakamura captured the WWE United States Championship. And as we will see, this is most definitely all synced up with the opening of the church in France. As always, we'll take a look at Gematria with the primary ciphers shown on your screen. The 4 base methods plus standard and Latin, as always, will carry us through this video. So the big event this weekend took place in Paris, France, when Donald Trump re-emerged on the world stage and met up with French President Emmanuel Macron, as well as Prince William of Wales. And we're going to talk about how the number 666 connects all of these men to this big ritual. Now, the number 666 is found in the gematria of both Pearl Harbor and World War II. In the reduction or Pythagorean ciphers, we get 60 and 66 with both of those values. Well, on the date of his visit to Paris, France, for the reopening of this church, first of all, consider how Notre Dame de Paris, the name of the church, means Our Lady of Paris. And the name of the church is a tribute to Mary, the mother of Jesus. And it was an important note for the media to point out that Trump was meeting up with Prince William for this big occasion, as was highlighted by most outlets. Well, Prince William has a strong connection to the name Mary. His mother's middle name, Queen Elizabeth, her middle name was Mary. Donald Trump also has a wild connection to the name Mary. His grandmother was named Elizabeth Christ Trump, and of course, Mary, the mother of Jesus Christ. Trump's grandmother died on the freakish date 6/6 of 66. Well, on the date of his visit, Donald Trump was 28,666 days old. The woman he defeated in the most recent election, Kamala Harris, was 60 years, 6 weeks, and 6 days old. This event was also 2,666 days after the first Great American Eclipse in 2017. But how about Joe Biden, the current president? If you consider that the number 9 is an upside-down 6, think about how Joe Biden was 29,969 days old on December 7th. And this year's Pearl Harbor Day was exactly 996 months after the original Japanese attack. Now, this 5-way 666 alignment is something I noted prior to this weekend. So when we saw it was the opening of Notre Dame on the state, everything made sense. If you were to use Fibonacci numbers, the name of the church, Our Lady of Paris, equals 666. Notre Dame is, of course, a Catholic church. Now, Catholicism is headquartered at the Vatican City, which was founded back in 1929. And look how old the Vatican was on this same date. 34,999 days. Also, 4,999 weeks and 6 days. This is also synced up with the French Revolution. Now, back in 1799, the French Revolution ended on the 9th of November. That's an important date because Donald Trump was first announced as the new president on the 9th of November, that very same day back in 2016, after the first election. Prince William was born 66,699 days after the end of the French Revolution. That same date was also 166 years and 6 months before the death of Trump's grandmother on 6/6 of 66. So these alignments are all pretty fascinating, especially considering how it all happened on Pearl Harbor Day. And again, Pearl Harbor, the event that drew the United States into World War II, both with 60 and 66 Gematria. So one day after the ceremonies began at Notre Dame, F1 held their Abu Dhabi Grand Prix. And in Formula One, there's one Japanese driver on the grid, Yuki Tsunoda. Well, at the start of the race, Yuki Tsunoda had a stall at the start line, so everyone had to drive around him. Now, I've watched every race this year, and I'm pretty sure that was the first time all year a car has stalled on the grid. And what are the odds that it's the Japanese driver immediately after this massive 666 riddle with the opening of the church in Paris? And this is, of course, all connected to Shinsuke Nakamura, the Japanese WWE superstar, winning the United States Championship. Pearl Harbor, the event that drew the United States into the war. And to make this even more interesting, he won the championship at an event called War Games. The theme of this event was even War Pigs by Black Sabbath. Now, what makes this 666 alignment with Formula One so incredible is that prior to the race, I made a post showing how the number 666 is connected to 4 different drivers on the grid. Well, those 4 drivers that I talked about, the Ferrari and Mercedes drivers, finished this race 2 through 5. The winner, who is really the only major guy I didn't talk about in that post, was Lando Norris, the McLaren driver, who, along with the 1-point Oscar Piastri his teammate got, they ended up scoring 666 points for the entire season. If you multiply 666 times 3, notice how you get the number 1998. Well, this was McLaren's first championship for the constructors since the year 1998. In fact, the driver who won the race, Lando Norris, was born in 1999, which has the upside down 666 in it. So, no question about it, this is the number that drew everything together. And really, it all came through Charles Leclerc. Now, if you saw my video on the death of Eminem's father, I mentioned Leclerc in that video. However, I said he is probably not going to win the race, and he did not. Notice how Leclerc finished third on the podium. But despite not winning the race, Charles Leclerc did win Driver of the Day. And why did he win Driver of the Day, even though he didn't win the race? Well, this is because Leclerc started all the way back at 19th and then finished in third, which means he gained 16 places during the race. And in the same post I talked about 666 before the race, I also talked about how the number 16 was incredibly coded into Charles Leclerc for this race. For instance, he was 9,916 days old. He drives the number 16 car. This was the 16th Abu Dhabi Grand Prix. And the team he drives for, Ferrari, was trying to win their first constructors' title in 16 years. In fact, this race was 16 years, 1 month, and 6 days after their last championship. This race was also 61 days after the anniversary of Yale University, home to the Skull and Bone Society. Charles Leclerc with matching 61 Gematria with skull and crossbones. And this was 61 weeks after the university turned 322 years old. This also connects to the current Brown lunation number, 1261. The president of the United Arab Emirates, where the race took place, he even has Gematria of 1600. So this number was definitely trending before the race, as I noted. And what do you know? Charles Leclerc makes up 16 spots from 19th to 3rd, winning him Driver of the Day. Now, as far as the number 666 and Charles Leclerc, there was a strong alignment here as well. Now, Charles Leclerc drives for Ferrari, as I just mentioned, and next year, his new teammate at Ferrari will be Lewis Hamilton, the most successful driver in the sport of all time. Lewis Hamilton was born 666 weeks, or 4,666 days before Leclerc. In his final race with Mercedes, Hamilton was exactly 2,083 weeks old. 2,083 is the Latin gematria of 666. Next year's Ferrari teammates are born 283 days apart on the calendar. The president of UAE also had the 283 in his age for this race. When you write out the number 666, using the standard alphabetic order, it's 275. And not only was this race exactly 275 weeks after Leclerc's first Grand Prix, but it was also 313 days before his next birthday. And in the King James Bible, 603 is how the number of the beast is written. That sums to 313. But I want to talk again about this 2,083, which was in Lewis Hamilton's age for the race. Well, think about how in this special Latin gematria cipher, the phrase mathematics of the circle equals 666, just like mathematical perfection. In fact, the word perfection on its own, also 666, in Sumerian. Well, to resolve the mathematics of the circle, we use pi, or 3.14. Well, 2,083 is the 314th prime number. Leclerc's current teammate on Ferrari, Carlos Sainz, was exactly 30 years and 14 weeks old for this race. Abu Dhabi Grand Prix and Yas Marina Circuit, the name of the racetrack that it happens at, both have gematria of 314 in various methods. And this, of course, all ties back to the attack on Pearl Harbor. Using the reverse alphabetic order, attack on Pearl Harbor has this special 314 gematria. So there's a little bit more with the number 666, but I'm going to take a step back from that piece of the riddle. And we're going to focus on these stories one at a time here. And to kick this off, we'll talk about the opening of Notre Dame. Because, as always, there's many numbers that go into these ritualistic political ceremonies. So, of course, Trump was recently elected as the 47th president of the United States. The name Trump has double gematria of 47, just like the word beast. President, White House government, Republican, Democrat, all 47. And now he reemerges after the election in France, which has ordinal gematria of 47. Meeting with Prince William. William has the 47. And Notre Dame being a Catholic church, consider how Pope Francis equals 47, just like Vatican, where the Pope lives. Not only does Prince William have birth numerology of 47, but his father, King Charles, was born on the date leaving 47 days in the year. And when it comes to King Charles, this probably has everything to do with why Charles Leclerc, even though he did not win the race, was the main character, so to speak, of the numerical riddle that played out this weekend. But first, let's talk about how Emmanuel Macron, the president of France, who greeted Donald Trump upon his arrival, has perfect numerology syncing up with the Notre Dame de Paris, as well as the fire that occurred back in 2019. This ceremony this past weekend celebrated the reopening of the church after this blaze several years ago. This past Saturday was 1 year and 59 days after the special 322nd anniversary of Yale University, home of the Skull and Crossbones, or Order 322. And obviously, it's no coincidence that this school turned 322 in the year 2023. On Saturday, it was also 105 sidereal months and 9 days after Donald Trump first became the president back in 2017. In Gematria, Donald Trump equals 159 reverse, while the name Trump equals 1590 using square numbers. On the date of the fire back in 2019, President Macron was 15,090 days old. Using the Fibonacci method of Gematria, Emmanuel Macron equals 1509. While in Sumerian Gematria, or ordinal times 6, Notre Dame de Paris sums to 1590. The fire at Notre Dame was exactly 1 year and 48 weeks after Emmanuel Macron became the president of France. Well, in the alphabetic order, his name, Emmanuel Macron, equals 148. Also in ordinal, Donald J. Trump equals 148. And in reverse, Notre Dame equals 148. Now, if you multiply 148 times 6, you get this product of 888, which means all of these values, for Emmanuel Macron, Donald J. Trump, and Notre Dame all equal 888 in Sumerian Gematria. Well, that fire at Notre Dame was exactly 888 days after Donald Trump was first elected as president in 2016. That election was even held on 11/8. And 11 times 8 gives us 88. Reminding us of how Trump is 88 in ordinal. In regards to this 148, this is also the gematria of Prince William's full name, William Arthur Philip Lewis. He's got the 148 too. And this was the most symbolic meeting that occurred over the weekend. So the Lady of Paris that's referred to in the name Notre Dame de Paris is the Virgin Mary. Now, in the alphabetic order, the name Mary equals 57. This is very significant because Mary is a symbol of the divine feminine. Much like the moon, which also equals 57 in ordinal. And don't forget, over the summer, we had the Summer Olympics in Paris. The opening ceremonies took place during a rainstorm on the river. And it's the moon that governs the tides, the rush of water on earth, the symbol of the feminine. Well, in Sumerian, Notre Dame sums to 570. President Emmanuel Macron was born on a date with 57 numerology. And he's connected to this divine feminine riddle, as a lot of people believe his wife is actually a man. That's for you to decide, but check this out. This proves this connection right here. In Latin gematria, the name Mary equals 511. And when the fire occurred at the Notre Dame Church in 2019, Emmanuel Macron was exactly 511 lunar phases. A lunar phase, a little bit different than the aforementioned sidereal month, which measures the time it takes for the moon to orbit the Earth in relation to the stars. The lunar phase, or synodic month, instead measures between new moon and new moon. The 511 also showed up in Prince William's age for the reopening ceremony. These are the same digits found in the reverse gematria of France, 115. And when Emmanuel Macron became the president of France, well, that was 115 days after Donald Trump became the president of the United States. President Macron was born on the date leaving 231 days in the year. Well, President Macron has matching 231 gematria with Mary, Mother of Jesus. And this is more or less the formal way of how people write out Mary's name. Mary, Mother of Jesus, also has an 815 in standard gematria, kind of like the moon in square numbers. 815. The fire at the church was 815 days after Trump became president. So we talked a lot about these 666 connections. There is a little bit more. As always, all of my posts are linked down in the description below this video. So Our Lady of Paris has this 666 using Fibonacci method. And as I mentioned earlier, 666 is connected to 1998. Well, this fire at Notre Dame occurred 11,998 weeks exactly after the start of the French Revolution. Remember McLaren with their 666 points, collecting their first title since 1998. Our Lady of Paris, also 198 reverse. Trump's grandmother, Elizabeth Christ, died 1,998 months after the end of the French Revolution. Prince William's full name, which was William Arthur Philip Lewis. In the alphabetic order, his name equals 311. Well, 311 is the Latin gematria of the beast. And this number was coded into Donald Trump for this fire. Check this out. The 311th prime number is 2063. Notre Dame opened 2,063 days after the fire that burned it down. And that fire was 26,603 days after Donald Trump was born. These digits are connected to Trump. Not only does Trump equal 263 satanic, but with capital letters, Donald John Trump also equals 263. Trump was first elected president 2,603 months after the French Revolution ended. .263 is another prime number, the 56th. And here he finds himself in Paris, France, which equals 56, meeting up with the president of France, who was born on a date with primary numerology of 56. And again, all of these digits connect back to 311, the number of the beast, which is cleverly coded into the full name of Prince William. There's also a good 9/11 riddle in here as well. I mentioned how this is connected to Mary and the divine feminine, a phrase with 9/11 gematria. The opening of Notre Dame was 119 days after the end of the Paris Olympics. Another number connected to the Catholic Church, both Francis and Vatican, equals 119. When Francis became the Pope, it was during Brown Lunation 1116, which is like an upside-down 9111. Meanwhile, the Notre Dame fire occurred during Brown Lunation 1191. And of course, Donald John Trump, his full name with matching gematria with World Trade Center. World Trade Center construction began on the 6th of August, or 6/8, in the year 68. Both Donald John Trump and Donald J. Trump equals 68. His grandmother, Elizabeth Christ, her birth name, has matching 68 gematria with Pope Francis and Catholicism. Well, the 68th prime number is 337. And when you write out Prince William's full name in the reverse alphabetic order, it sums to 337, like Christianity. World Trade Center and New York City both have a 337 coded into its gematria. And the fire at Notre Dame was 1 year and 337 days after Macron became president. So talking about this Christianity code, we're talking about Catholicism, but it is a branch of Christianity. The number 93 is very important to this religion. Consider how Adam lived to 930 years. Or was it Noah? I think it was Adam. I don't know, I'm blanking on my biblical history right now. But either way, Christianity with 930 gematria. Trump's father, Fred Trump, passed away at the age of 93. The name Trump has matching 93 gematria with France. Also, Mary, Mother of Jesus, with that 93 value as well. When Elizabeth Christ Trump died, Donald Trump was the 930th prime number of days old. So this riddle goes back many decades. It's very deep. But the reason I point this out is because in the United States, there's a famous college football team named Notre Dame. And they just so happen to be doing pretty well this year. I think they're in the college football playoff. 11-1 in an independent. I actually don't know. Are they eligible for the playoffs being an independent? I actually don't know. So yeah, they are in the playoffs. All right, this makes sense. Going up against the Indiana Hoosiers. But anyway, look at the win total for Notre Dame in their school history. They have a total of 903 wins. Now, to make this especially wild, they've vacated 21 of those wins due to violations of NCAA rules. This means they actually only have 882 wins. However, they've also won 21 bowl games, which means they've still won 903 games even after that penalty is applied. Just add their season and postseason total. So you get a double 903 with Notre Dame. How incredible. So there's a little bit more connected to Yale University and Skull and Bones with all of this. But truthfully, this 666 riddle all ties back to Mary, the mother of Jesus, and the president of France, Mr. Macron, who married his teacher, didn't he? Wasn't she like his professor at college or something? Be crazy. So next up, I want to touch on a little numerology connected to the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix. The first driver I decoded was Max Verstappen, who won the Formula One championship a few weeks ago. Max Verstappen has a persistent Venus riddle in his career. Max Verstappen is a Libra, and Libra is the sign ruled by the planet Venus. And of course, Venus is the planet of love. Oftentimes when Max Verstappen wins a race, he says, "Simply lovely," over the radio. He always says this, lovely, right? Well, right before the race, Max Verstappen announced that his girlfriend was having his first child. And his girlfriend is the daughter of a former 2- or 3-time F1 champion, Nelson Piquet. So this kid's going to have some amazing driver genes. Boy or girl, it doesn't matter. It's going to be a driver. But what I pointed out for this race is that Max was the 1,225th prime number of days old for this race. 1225 is the sum of the magic square of Venus. Planet Venus sums to 1261. And this race was held under lunation 1261. It was also 296 days before Max's birthday, which is also the value of planet Venus with capital letters. So how interesting that I point this out, and then Max Verstappen announces his girlfriend is pregnant. So we touched on most of this with the number 666. Now, on my channel, I mentioned this earlier, but Eminem performed at the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix this weekend. And that was rather noteworthy because Eminem's mother died earlier this week. So he originally canceled the show, but then agreed later on to do it. Now, I noticed that Eminem's mom has the January 6th birthday. 1/6. And how interesting that This whole riddle went through Charles Leclerc, the number 16 car. Leclerc was born exactly 25 years after M&M, with the end date included. And 25, the gematria of 603 score and 6, 2500. Also, M&M represents Detroit, which is home to the 313 area code. Leclerc was 313 days before his birthday, matching 603 score 6 in ordinal. The name Mathers, which is Eminem's real last name, sums to 314. And Leclerc's teammate, once again, had the 314 in his age for the race, which has gematria of 314. But in my video on Eminem's mom, I talked about how it was all synced up to the Pi Day eclipse, which happens on March 14th, or 314 next year. Notice how the digits in pi, 314, are all found in Leclerc's age for that date. 1,430 weeks and 1 day old. 3141, the first 4 digits of pi. Leclerc was 9,909 days old when Eminem's mother died. Her name, Debbie Mathers, equals 66 and 666. Her birth name, Deborah Nelson, 60 and 66. And Leclerc was looking for his 9th Grand Prix win. However, McLaren instead got their 9th Constructors' Championship. Another thing that stood out is that Debbie Mathers died of lung cancer, and lung cancer has matching 399 gematria in Latin with murder. They both equal 399. Well, Charles Leclerc's teammate was also 30 years and 99 days old. Meanwhile, Lewis Hamilton's teammate was 1,399 weeks old, exactly. One more thing I want to point out about this race, before I talk about McLaren here, is the new driver on the grid. So in Abu Dhabi, we had the debut of Alpine driver Jack Doohan, another Australian to join the sport. And Jack Doohan is super synced up with Charles Leclerc as well. Just check this out. First of all, 666 and 666s has matching 57 gematria with moon, as well as eclipse in Hebrew. The moon with a 57-degree range of declination. And now we get the debut of a guy named Doohan, who drives for Alpine, and those both sum to 57 in the alphabetic order. Well, the 57th prime number is 269. And Jack Doohan was born 269 days before Leclerc's birthday. This also means he was born 96 days after Charles Leclerc's last birthday. Well, 96 is the ordinal gematria of the number 16. Remember, Debbie Mathers died at the age of 69, the inverse of 96, and she had cancer, who has the astrological symbol like 69, pi summing to 69. Well, consider how this race on Sunday was 96 days before the Pi Day lunar eclipse. And not only does 16 equal 96, but Pi Day total lunar eclipse equals 96. So anyway, Jack Doohan, his name equals the 16th prime number. And for some reason, Jack Doohan drove the number 61 car for this race, even though next year he'll be driving, I think, number 7. But for this one and only race, he wore number 61, and that's the Gematria of Charles Leclerc. In regards to this moon riddle that connects the two drivers, the Brown lunation number began in the year 1923. These two drivers were born a total of 1,923 days apart. The moon equals 99, and Doohan was born during Brown lunation 990. He was also born 30 years and 96 days after rapper Eminem. And Eminem's mom, who just died, was born during Brown lunation 396. So, again, this was all pointing to Leclerc winning driver of the day. He didn't win the race, but you can't deny the incredible scripted numerology that syncs all of these drivers together. So, next up, I want to talk about McLaren, the team that won their first championship in 26 years. And they did so by scoring 26 points in this race. Lando Norris, the champion, picked up 25 for his win, while his teammate, who was spun out at turn 1 by Max Verstappen, only scored 1, so they totaled for a combined of 26. Now, I have my theories on how these races are scripted, which I'll talk about in a little bit. But first, let's look at the numbers. So again, this was their first title since 1998, which is a multiple of 666. And the word beast equals 198, like 1998. And if you write out the beast, it equals 311. Now keep this in mind, 198 and 311 connected to the beast. McLaren F1 team CEO Zach Brown, who manages these two drivers, notice how he was born on the 311th day of the year. The president of United Arab Emirates was born on the date 311. This is the 64th prime number. And this Grand Prix was held on a date with 64 numerology. Despite picking up the victory, it was Haas driver Kevin Magnussen who picked up the fastest lap of the race. This was only Kevin's third fastest lap of his entire career, which goes back about a decade. And it was for Haas, which is not the fastest team. This is a pretty rare accomplishment for them. Well, the driver Kevin Magnussen, I want you to look at his gematria. His full name, Kevin Jan Magnussen, sums to both 1908 and 64, which are both numbers connected to this beast riddle. And Magnussen was 64 days after his birthday for this race. Magnussen is the only Danish driver on the grid born in Denmark. Well, in all 4 base ciphers, Denmark has matching gematria with the champion team McLaren, including the number 123. Team founder Bruce McLaren was born on the date leaving 123 days in the year. But back to this number 66, which Denmark shares with McLaren. McLaren scoring 666 points. Think about the verse in the Bible where the number of the beast is revealed. Here is wisdom, number of the beast, number of a man, and his number is. All phrases that sum to 66 in gematria. another number that Trump has in his primary birth numerology. And Trump, who was in Notre Dame when McLaren won the championship, is incredibly synced to McLaren. Earlier this year, Donald Trump visited the Formula One paddock in Miami for the race down in Florida. And he did so as a guest of Zach Brown and the McLaren team. And now McLaren wins the Constructors as Trump goes through this 666 riddle in Notre Dame. Zach Brown with matching Gematria with President. So Kevin Magnussen, this Haas driver, his name equals 174 ordinal, just like Haas in Sumerian. Well, Number of the Beast has double Gematria of 174. This was Magnussen's 185th race connecting to Donald John Trump's full name. But this riddle is quite incredible when you dig down to the roots. Zach Brown was born 9,277 days after Donald Trump. 277 is the reverse value of Zachary Shalin Brown, his full name. When Zach Brown won the Constructors' title for McLaren, he was exactly 2,770 weeks old. It was Kevin Jan Magnussen who got the fastest lap. His name equals 277. But this is a number that's connected to the founder of McLaren, Bruce McLaren, who was killed in a testing crash 277 days after his birthday. A death which was freakishly foreshadowed in his own autobiography. So it seems like nobody witnessed his crash. Seems a little suspicious, but again, I'll let you be the judge. So Lando Norris, who won this race from pole position, turned 1,308 weeks old for the race. Donald Trump equals 138 in the alphabetic order. But also notice how Donald Trump equals 589 in Latin, which is the reverse value of Jesus, 985. Well, isn't it interesting that the third place team, Red Bull, ended with a total of 589 points? And as I discussed at great length earlier this year, Red Bull is essentially the Jesus team of Formula One. And this numerology is expressed through their champion driver, Max Verstappen. Notice how Red Bull has the same gematria as Jesus and Jesus Christ. We talked about Mary summing to 511. Donald Trump had the 511 in his age when Lando Norris was born. The name Norris equals 1,511. And Norris was born 5 months and 11 days after the anniversary of Bruce McLaren's death. Speaking of the early demise of Bruce McLaren, McLaren president Zach Brown was born 523 days later. Well, 523 is the satanic gematria of Donald Trump. McLaren entered this weekend with a total of 523 steps on the podium. And, of course, 523, the 99th prime number. This was McLaren's 9th championship. But I want to look at a little more before I wrap this up. Earlier, I talked about these connections with the number 277, right? This was a very, very strong part of this decode. But what about the number 177? Team founder Bruce Leslie McLaren, his full name equals 177. And when his team won the championship, it was 177 days before the anniversary of Bruce's death. It was also 177 days after Donald Trump's birthday. This is a number connected to the Jesuit order and the Eclipse Code. But also, not only was Zach Brown born 9,277 days after Donald Trump, but it was also 7 months and 7 days before Trump's birthday. Trump's birthday falls 77 days before Bruce McLaren's. And when McLaren won the championship this weekend, notice how Bruce's age ends with the 77 days. Bruce even died 770 days before the next total solar eclipse. So, just a wildly deep 77 riddle through all of this. All right, guys, one more story for this 93rd edition of the Superstream. If you've made it through the video this far, through all my incessant number rambling, I'd appreciate if you gave a like or subscribe if you're not already to the channel. Of course, YouTube doesn't really do channels like this any justice as far as sharing in the algorithm anymore, which sounds like sour apples, and maybe it is. But it truly is the reality of the internet environment we live in here in 2024. It's not quite the same as it was in 2017 and 2018. But what I want to look at now is perhaps the best riddle of this entire Superstream. On Saturday last weekend, Shinsuke Nakamura surprisingly won the United States Championship from LA Knight. And this was an unexpected victory for most fans. So much so that media outlets are trying to come up with reasons. Why did LA Knight lose? Nakamura's been with the company for 7 or 8 years. He already had his best run, most people believe. Won the Royal Rumble in 2018, which we'll talk about. So they attempt to provide some explanations related to Nakamura traveling to Japan to maybe give WWE some overseas exposure, but of course, all of this ties back to numbers, symbolism, and the occultic language of Gematria. Now, we've been looking at this Pearl Harbor riddle that lined up for December 7th, the opening of Notre Dame. And here we have a Japanese star winning the title again. So what you'll learn here is how this all syncs up perfectly with the Pearl Harbor attack back on December 7th of 1941. Nakamura's United States Championship victory was 30,309 days after the attack. In the standard alphabetic order, WWE United States Championship equals 339. This match was booked by WWE Chief Content Officer Triple H. And the name Triple H has fun gematria, right? Because consider how HHH is 888, right? Using the ordinal method. And then Triple H is 88. Well, look at how old Triple H was for this event. Exactly 2,888 weeks old. Huh. Well, in the alphabetic order, United States Championship equals 288. This event was called Survivor Series War Games, which also equals 288. Shinsuke Nakamura was born 2 years, 8 months, and 8 days before his competitor, LA Knight. Why is that so interesting? Well, Nakamura was born 288 days before the anniversary of the Pearl Harbor attacks, or Pearl Harbor Day, as we now call it. Pearl Harbor Day is celebrated annually on December 7th, or 12/7. Shinsuke defeated LA Knight, whose real name, Sean Ricker, sums to 127 in ordinal. The name Sean Ricker also matches Pearl Harbor attack, 170 and 71. This match took place 1 week before the 83rd anniversary of the attack. LA Knight's full name, Sean Edward Ricker, equals 83 reduction. Meanwhile, Shinsuke Nakamura's nickname, King of Strong Style, which was also the name of his 2014 autobiography book, King of Strong Style, equals 83. LA Knight actually won the U.S. title earlier this year on August 3rd, or 8-3. So once again, Pearl Harbor is what drew the United States into the largest war in human history. This event was called War Games, with a theme called War Pigs. War Games equals 87 in ordinal, and this event was held 87 days before the birthday of Shinsuke Nakamura. Notice how his name equals 815 in Latin Gematria. This was actually another number I mentioned earlier, right? Connected to Mary, the moon, and Donald Trump with the Notre Dame fire. Well, the 815th composite number, or non-prime number, is 981. Shinsuke Nakamura was 981 days old when LA Knight was born. But there's something even better with this. Not only was he 981 days old, but if you include the end date, this is a span of 982 days. In standard English gematria, attack on Pearl Harbor equals 982. And Shinsuke is the king of strong style. In Latin, strong style equals 982. Strong style also has matching 60 reduction gematria with Shinsuke Nakamura. 60 is an interesting date to Pearl Harbor, which happened on a date with 60 numerology. 12 plus 7 plus 41, 60. And remember, both Pearl Harbor and World War II equals 60 in reduction. The new U.S. champion was born exactly 1,994 weeks after Japan attacked Hawaii. 1994 is the value of the Society of Jesus, Order of the Solar Temple, also total solar eclipse with the 994. And I just think it's interesting that we celebrate Pearl Harbor Day now. Pearl Harbor Day equals 234. The attack happened during Brown Lunation number 234. And this ritual, scripted of course, involved the WWE United States Championship, which in Sumerian, which is of course the ordinal method times 6, WWE United States Championship equals 2034 and 2340. So I mentioned the eclipse code a little bit, talking about Nakamura, right? Well, this manifested in perhaps the most obvious way possible. When Nakamura made his entrance to win the United States Championship, he did so under a blood moon. Notice the video board behind him displaying the red moon for a total lunar eclipse. Well, when Nakamura won the Royal Rumble all the way back in 2018, perhaps his greatest accomplishment, that was 314 days before the attack on Pearl Harbor anniversary. Notice how in Gematria, King of Strong Style equals 314 with capital letters, so does United States title. Attack on Pearl Harbor equals 314. So does the name Hirohito, the Emperor of Japan during World War II. Well, now, Nakamura won the United States Championship a span of 3 months and 14 days before the Pi Day lunar eclipse, which happens on the date 314. The word eclipse in Satanic Gematria sums to 314, a method called Satanic because it's centered around the number 666, of course. This match was also exactly 105 days before the blood moon. In ordinal, blood moon equals 105, while Pearl Harbor, Hawaii equals 105 as well. That's also 15 weeks, connecting to the U.S. Championship, and Vancouver, British Columbia, where this event was held, 150 days before the birthday of Emperor Hirohito. I should also mention that this event took place in Vancouver, which is on the western coast of North America. And Nakamura defeated a wrestler named L.A. Knight. And L.A. is for Los Angeles. And both Los Angeles and Vancouver on the coast that points to Hawaii, right? Hirohito died exactly 463 weeks after Nakamura was born. Well, that's total eclipse in Gematria, 463. With prime numbers, Pearl Harbor Day also equals 463. Nakamura's competitor was born 186 days after Hirohito's birthday. Shinsuke Nakamura equals 186 ordinal. Sorry, my cats are losing their minds behind me for some reason. Trying to get them to stop fighting. Anyway, so with the lunar eclipse code in play here, notice the phrase total lunar eclipse summing to 804. Emperor Hirohito has matching 804 Gematria with L.A. Knight. Now, the 84th prime number is 433, which is connected to the solar eclipse code. Solar eclipse equals 804 and 433. Well, L.A. Knight was born 40 years and 330 days after the Pearl Harbor attack. And when he lost the title to a Japanese wrestler, it was 4,330 weeks after Pearl Harbor exactly. This match was also 236 days after the American total solar eclipse. 236 is the gematria of both King of Strong Style and United States title. Both of these phrases also sum to 223. This match was 2 years and 23 days after the last total lunar eclipse. And that's interesting because Pearl Harbor happened 2 months and 23 days before the next total lunar eclipse. Eclipses from the same Saros series are separated by 223 lunar phases. The moon equals 223 in Hebrew Gematria. When Shinsuke won the 2018 Royal Rumble, it was in the city of Philadelphia. And of course, Philadelphia also has the 223 in reverse. When it comes to Asian superstars in wrestling and pro sports in general, the number 44 is something we see repeated over and over. Asian equals 44 in ordinal. Not only was Emperor Hirohito born on a 44 date, but so was Shinsuke Nakamura, who defeated LA Knight, which equals 44. On the date he beat LA Knight, Nakamura was exactly 44 years and 40 weeks old, giving us a triple 4. 444 is the standard value of Hirohito. World War II ended after the United States bombed Hiroshima and Nagasaki, which sums to 444 Latin. And now this event, held in Vancouver, British Columbia, which sums to 444 with capital letters. But check this out. Survivor Series was held exactly 444 lunar phases after the death of Hirohito. When Nakamura won the Royal Rumble in 2018, it was 1,444 lunar phases after Hirohito was born. Survivor Series War Games sums to 144 and 1,014. Pearl Harbor Day equals 144 and 1404. 44 equals 144, just like Asian Man 144. King of Strong Style equals 1104. Of course, 44 is just 11 times 4. This was at War Games, which is a 1114. And then you have Pearl Harbor, World War, and Hirohito, all summing to 114. In fact, when Nakamura won the Royal Rumble, he entered at number 14, which, in my eyes, is a very clear nod to this connection. I think Hirohito died 10 months and 14 days after Shinsuke's birthday as well. Yeah, there it is. 10 months and 14 days from Nakamura's birthday to Hirohito's date of death. So why did Nakamura win in 2018 of all years? Well, of course, I already revealed a couple of interesting alignments, right? But think about this. The year 2018, okay? Shinsuke Nakamura was born in Mineyama, Kyoto, Japan. This is a place that sums to 2018 in standard English gematria. The word moon equals 218 in Hebrew. Using prime numbers, Japanese also equals 218. This Japanese superstar was born a span of 2 months and 18 days after the anniversary of Pearl Harbor. In Latin gematria, the number 77 sums to 2180, which has the same digits as 2018. And Shinsuke's Rumble victory was in 2018, which is 77 years after the Pearl Harbor attack. The Pearl Harbor attack happened exactly 77 days after a total solar eclipse that split through the Japanese Empire. Look at this. So in 1941, we get this total solar eclipse, a rare event which only happens 7 times per decade on average. Going south of Japan and splitting the empire. And then 77 days later, Japan attacks Hawaii, which is right near where the path ended. In the alphabetic order, kamikaze equals 77. And that's what highlighted the Pearl Harbor attacks. Kamikaze pilots crashing into boats to give their lives for the cause. Well, Shinsuke Nakamura, WWE's kamikaze, was born during Brown Lunation number 707. After winning the King of the Ring, he was called King Nakamura. And now for the 3rd time, he's a United States Championship. Both of these equals 77. But look at this. Kamikaze has matching 357 Gematria with Pearl Harbor. And Nakamura won the U.S. title 357 weeks after he won the Royal Rumble. It was also 35,770 days after Hirohito became the Emperor of Japan. It's just crazy. Nakamura also with the 311. Remember I mentioned how these numbers combine, 198 and 311, the Beast Code. Well, Shinsuke was born on the date leaving 311 days in the year 1980. So right here you have that pairing all over again. So, man, when the WWE scripts their numeric rituals, holy crap, do they go all in. And this one is an absolute beaut. Maybe my favorite WWE riddle ever, given the solidity of all of this, right? I mean, most of this is in the alphabetic order. And then you go to our 2 primary large number methods, which give us absolutely incredible syncs with this eclipse code that's so evident through the entrance that Nakamura made. So, with all of that said, I think it's just about time to wrap this video up. I think for the 93rd edition of the Super Stream, I did an okay job showing how the number of the beast synced up all of the world news, all of the big major sports going on, and yeah, I mean, I didn't talk about the NFL or NBA. You know, the reason I like Formula 1 for decoding is because there's only 1 race per weekend and only 20 drivers in this sport. So it's straight to the point, right? You don't have to shuffle through 16 NFL games or, you know, however many NBA games occur during the week, like 100 or something like that. As far as Formula 1 and whether it's scripted or being a real sport, I think I've done a pretty good job this year showing just how insanely scripted everything is. When it comes to racing, it's always interesting to me because you have these cars that are perhaps some of humanity's most complicated machinery to ever take the road. You consider that these cars are running at thousands of degrees, right? Crashing into each other at hundreds of miles an hour sometimes. Well, in this race, this weekend, you know, we pointed out how McLaren got to 666 points, right? And let me just pull this back up for you guys. I don't usually do this once I've brought up the theme for the Super Stream again, but I just thought this was pretty interesting. So once again, McLaren had to score 26 points in order to get to 666. So you must be wondering, like, wait a minute. Piastri and Verstappen crashed on the first lap. And it's possible that it could have been very easy for that crash to be race ending. Any contact with these cars at speed can break them, right? However, Piastri managed to come all the way back and score 1 point in 10th place. Now, if Piastri's car broke down from this incident, he would not have been able to finish. And McLaren could have only scored 665 points. However, in Formula One, the fastest lap also gets 1 point as long as they're in the top 10. So if Piastri didn't finish, they could have done a fastest lap with Lando. However, they had Kevin Magnussen down here steal it instead. So in my eyes, this was the failsafe where they can get away with having a crash, but still have the numbers line up perfectly anyway. So I just wanted to talk about a little bit before I wrap this up and get that off my chest, because I thought it was an interesting thing to note. All right, Q ending number 2, everybody. That'll do it for real this time. Thanks for tuning in. Peace, love, God bless, and we'll talk to y'all next time. See ya.